in a storm against that bridge. But would you tell us and the public what happened when we actually did close that bridge?
Absolutely, Mayor. So when we did, I think it's been a little over a year, we had initially put up barricades that were removed the same day. We eventually put a fence up that was chained to both the north and the south. They were cut on a daily basis. And then we even, our cameras can see, when we had fortified the fence with the chain, we saw a number of individuals climbing the fence on a regular basis. And so it gave us significant concern because we were trying to mitigate a liability, and we were seeing the public actually create more liability by trying to access it. Councilmember Knobloch's points are very well taken. As part of the comments that Councilmember Knobloch has made, I think it will be staff's direction based on council tonight that we're going to engage a geotechnical to understand the costs, and also install some monitoring devices so that we can monitor the slope. We will have to engage the property owner or owners as well, because some of those inclometers most likely will need to be installed on their property to monitor that. And so much like we are doing with Cypress Shores and that land subsidence issue, we will engage our JPIA as part of that process as well with the city, so that we're protected and we're working with them and the experts that we can retain through them, geotechnical, et cetera. If I can do it under my city manager authority of $25,000 or less, I will do it. However, if we get a cost that exceeds that, it'll be on your next council agenda item for the council to review and provide direction and approval for. But we had an opportunity today, both me and Mr. Gomez, to meet with Councilmember Knobloch, and I know we met with a couple of other council members talking about this bridge. And so we're totally aware, and we appreciate the concern of monitoring that slope, because as you know, San Clemente is the land of subsidence. And much like we're dealing with Linda Lane Pump Station, very similar issue, but a different impact as it relates to our sewer pumping station, we're working with the property owners to mitigate that slope as well. And so we will definitely move expeditiously on dealing with that specific concern as well.
If I could also ask that the city attorney be involved in that, because the property owner has a legal obligation to not destroy our bridge, and that land belongs to someone else and it's moving. And I think that legal analysis needs to be a key part of the geotechnical. So, Madam Mayor, I'm inclined to make a motion to support this with the instruction that the city manager go ahead with the geotechnical work. And if it exceeds his authority, I'd like to increase the authority to go up to 50,000 if necessary, to get some high-powered geotechnical people on this right away.
Second.
Yeah, I agree. I don't want to limit us studying that. I have to agree with Councilmember Duncan that I think it is important to keep it open. So Councilmember Duncan, how do you, well, let's go ahead and we'll take a roll call vote on that.
Okay.
Yeah.
I was going to ask some staff questions.
Oh, go ahead.
For voting. Thanks, Mayor Ward. Yeah, the $352,000. I am concerned at how this was approved. A contract was already executed on May 11th, but we didn't have an emergency meeting to actually have council vote on that, because the city manager's spending authority this far exceeded. It's $25,000 and this is $352,000. Is there a reason, city manager, that we didn't have an emergency meeting to authorize this under policy?
Pursuant to Ferguson, we have a provision in our municipal code that allows for emergency contracting. The example I can give most recently was with the Via Santa Maria improvements. We are required to bring it back at the next council meeting for ratification. And so doing this at the next available council meeting.
It's kind of, the sound really went out, but I just, if possible, I'd like to have us do that. We have emergency special meetings. We've had about 6 this year. So if possible, I would love to try to do that next time before entering a contract. And then I just have a couple of questions for Zayed. He's still here. Hi. The report in justifying this expenditure, do you have a copy of the inspection report? I don't see it attached here. We hired the KP, who are the KPFF inspectors do you have a copy of the inspection report or pictures that we can see so we can visualize what's going on here?
Yes, Councilwoman Ferguson, I'll
Daniel.
respond to that. We did send a copy of the inspection report that was prepared by a professional structural engineering firm, Mark Thomas International. We provided that to the City Council earlier this afternoon.
Okay.
So you should all have that available to you.
Okay, thank you. Do you know, but we really need to include that next time in the agenda report so the public has the information we have. So let's make sure we do that so people know what we're talking about, because by looking at the report, the public wouldn't know. I wouldn't know by looking at this. I'm here tonight, so I've learned a lot about it, but just the fact that we need to make sure there's no holes in these report and people have the full transparency of the city and the picture of what we're doing. And do you happen to know how much the inspector was paid by the city? I don't see that in here to do this inspection, the consultant.
It was under $10,000.
Under 10,000? Okay, all right. So, and then also I'm concerned on page 2, it shows there was the need to do this to protect public health and safety. But I don't see how public safety or health was threatened, because there's no, explanation. It remained open during these repairs. So, what was the risk to the public health and safety?
Councilmember Ferguson, are you referring to page 2 of the condition assessment report that the structural engineer prepared?
No, page 2 in the agenda report.
Thank you.
Yes, thanks.
So the health and safety issue was that without doing the emergency repairs, without providing for the shoring and the bracing of the structure of the bridge, the structural engineer opined that the bridge was subjected to immediate failure. So my recommendation to the city manager and his ultimate approval was to initiate an emergency contract under the provisions of the municipal code and put the bracing and get the contractor to put the bracing and the shoring in so that the bridge could remain open.
Okay, I was just confused. If it was an immediate risk, then why didn't we close it while we did the repairs? But luckily nothing happened, and it sounds like it's almost done. Is it, Mr. Gomez? The repairs will be done pretty soon?
Yes, the repairs are scheduled to be completed at the end of this week.
Okay, very good. Thank you so much.
All right, so I believe there is a motion and a second on the table.
Yes, and for clarification, the city manager's signature authority for the geotechnical work, was that an additional 50,000 or
No,
250?
up to
Up
50.
to.
Up to 50.
Up to 50,000, okay. Councilmember Duncan,
Aye.
Councilmember Ferguson,
Aye.
Councilmember Noblock,
Aye.
Mayor Pro Tem James.
Aye.
And Mayor Ward.
Aye.
Carries 5-0.
Thank you, Mr. Gomez. And Zayed, please pronounce your last name. I'm not going to attempt it. Please pronounce
Ziad Mazboudi.
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 Okay, I'm going to try to say that from now on. Thank you.
Thank you.
The next item is a report from the city manager concerning the possibility of amending the code of the city of San Clemente as it relates to the planning commission. We do have 2 cards on this item.
All right. Can we have the public comments first?
First is Bart Crandall.
Good evening, Council. I had sent a letter to Council through the city offices, and I hope you had an opportunity to read it. That was just a document written by me as an architect that's represented hundreds of developers and people doing residential projects, et cetera, on the advantages of a 7-person commission versus a 5-person commission. And if you go through it, developers don't want any hidden surprises or expenses whenever they do an application or delays. And a 7-person commission actually aids in that, as we saw this evening. A small commission with fewer members can either have a 4-member where showing up if one is out. If 2 are out, you're not going to have a quorum. You can't vote on it. It's a delay for the per applicant, and costs, delays, not their fault. It's our fault. And we don't want to put the applicants in a position like that. Some people, in the letter, you might wonder, why can't a builder do a head count to see what the vote's going to be on the planning commission ahead of time before the meeting? Planning commissioners cannot give an opinion on how they're going to vote prior to a meeting. It's a quasi-judicial position, and we can only make our decision in the public meeting, not before, and not give any clues to anyone before. So that puts them at risk of being a gambler, and they're going to go with the best odds, and having a 7-person commission helps that. I also want to then talk like a planning commissioner. A lot of our work is not just on land use. We look at other things when we're working at the general plan, sections of the general plan, and the most diversified membership we can get on the planning commission helps us in those discussions. You can have architects, planners, high-tech individuals, landscape architects, residents, and all that input is necessary to really evaluate general plan and ordinances, and attorneys even help us muddle through that to get the best recommendation we can present to the city council for their review. And so we'll do the heavy lifting and present our recommendations, and then the council can make their decision. So I'm in support of the 7-member planning commission, and if you have any questions, I'd be certainly happy to answer them. Thank you.
Next speaker is Don Brown.
Good evening, council members. Don Brown, member of the Planning Commission and San Clemente President. I spoke to you about a month ago on this issue on 7 versus 5, and I support continuing this as 7. We got to this current configuration about 15 years ago, but the current functions that we use now is land use, traffic, cultural heritage, design review. Then in addition to that, you have general plan, liquor licenses, and a whole plethora of other things that you deal with. That 7 members accommodates a 3-member design review subcommittee, which allows you to hold that meeting without a Brown Act violation. It gives you depth. Design review subcommittee with 3, if you only went with 2, you'd have a 1 versus 1. One likes it, one doesn't like it. You're in a 1-on-1. That's a no vote. So here's the applicant, just like Commissioner Crandall just pointed out, has gone through the span time, and you get 2 members there. The alternate's not available. One says it's not ready to go to the planning commission. One says it is. Then it has to be rescheduled. And so now you're costing the applicant time and a lot of frustration with the application. So 3 members is key in any type of vote you want to do with the Brown Act in the state of California. The value of the design review subcommittee is seen all over this town, from the outlet malls to all the other quality projects that have taken place over the last 20 years, with an architect like Bart been running it for about 6 or 7 years. Before that, Michael Kopp, some of these other people that really raised our game plan in this town. And so there's a lot of work that we do on the planning commission. And when you look for a planning commissioner, you need somebody that can do land use, work with a traffic engineer and do traffic. One of the first topics I dealt through was a small 1,600-page EIR called the I-5 widening. It was really fun reading. You have a cultural heritage review and design review. So there's a lot of functions you build into this 7-man ticket. You dissolved the traffic commission, you dissolved the cultural heritage committee and the design review committee before that, and merged them into this. And the 2 extra members actually came from the traffic commission. And so you have a very effective and efficient organization doing a lot of functions, and you replaced 15 other people in 3 other committees and commissions. That's a heck of a cost savings to the city of San Clemente. So I encourage you to maintain this current configuration. It's very effective, it's very efficient, and covers a lot of issues for the city. And just like Commissioner Crandall just mentioned, you need an architect. A lawyer is always great. We had one in Jason Talley. People that know how to look at traffic studies like OCTA and deal with those issues also. So my recommendation to you is you sustain and keep the current ordinance with 7-member planning commission. I appreciate your time and willing to answer any questions you might have. Thank you.
I don't see any questions. Don, thank you. Okay. Council members, are there any questions of staff?
I have
You have a question or comment?
comment.
Okay, go ahead, Mayor Pro Tem.
I was very much in the camp of going to 5 commissioners until Don Brown beat me up repeatedly and wouldn't leave me alone. And I see you. But he, Don and I've had several conversations along this line. I'm going to be supportive of retaining 7 planning commissioners, and that's my only comment. I flipped 180 degrees on this. I thought I wanted 5, but the more I spoke with Don, the more I got to understand their mission, the more I was inclined to retain the 7. Particularly, I think when I don't want, I know Don's stepping off, and I don't want to upset anyone, but particularly I think we need to look at fresh blood on the planning commission. Certainly not Mr. Crandall, but I do think we need to look at fresh blood, and having 7 members is going to allow us to start transitioning some new bodies onto the planning commission.
I'd just say,
in addition, my understanding of how the planning commission came to be 7 originally, and including members from other commissions, leads to a really sort of diverse and comprehensive planning commission. And for those reasons, I think I'm going to be, against the change to 5 and in favor of the 7.
Okay. Councilmember Noblock, do you have any comments?
Yeah, I'm in favor of the move to 5, and I think 5 is more than enough to include the expertise that's needed. So I'm in favor of the motion. I also would go farther and say, in terms of the time that it takes to get a project approved and the cost that it takes to get a project approved, I would be in favor of eliminating in the ordinance Exhibit A, where it sets out the scope, paragraphs E and F. E being the design review subcommittee, eliminating the design review subcommittee completely. And I think the item F, the annual work specific plan, I think the current charge of the planning commission to do their job, I don't think we need to do goals and objectives for the coming. I think they're clearly stated in the statute and our ordinance. So I'm in favor of reducing it to 5 and eliminating paragraphs E and F from the ordinance.
Councilmember Ferguson, do you have any comments?
Only that I concur with Councilmember Noblock in his comments on this. Thank you.
Okay, so I'll go ahead and give my comments. As a former planning commissioner and working with the planning commission, I can tell you that 7 is not too many people. They have a very heavy lift that they do for the entire city, but for the council in reviewing applications. I don't think that they slow projects down at all. I think design review, I've been on it before. I think they actually help the developer get to where they need to faster. And otherwise, the developers, it would be taking longer, and there would be a lot of changes that would have to be made and delays. And I know that the design review actually modifies that and helps people get to where they're going. Our general plan is like the most important thing that I think our city has as a guideline. It took us so many years to get it approved, and it had so much public input. It is exactly what the residents want for our city to be in the future. And we are to follow that. And I got on the council saying that I would follow the general plan, and I was elected to do that. I think, we have Don Brown that is leaving after many years of service. And we will have to rotate some new people in, and they're going to need the existing members to keep the standards of and the historical knowledge that the Planning Commission has for us. So I will be for that also, and I'm looking for a motion to not approve the staff recommendation, or I guess, Madam Clerk, would it be to table this? What is the best motion?
I think it would just be to decline to adopt the ordinance,
Okay.
or to introduce it, decline to introduce.
All right, and I will also add before we do that, that Mayor Bain and I were on a subcommittee last year, and we looked at all of this, and we declined to change the Planning Commission. So I would like us, to make a decision this year and not change it and put the planning commissioners through this anymore.
Madam Mayor, I'll
that's
just
possible.
make a motion to table the item, if that accomplishes the goal.
I don't think that's the best motion. So there's a motion to table. Is there anyone that would want to second that?
I'll second that.
There's a second, Madam Clerk. Is there a substitute motion? I'll go ahead and make a motion to decline to adopt the ordinance.
Second.
Second by Mayor Pro Tem as a substitute motion.
Councilmember Duncan,
Aye.
Councilmember Ferguson,
No?
Councilmember Noblock,
No?
Mayor Pro Tem James.
Aye.
And Mayor Ward.
Aye.
Carries 3-2.
Mayor, if I may interrupt again, please.
Yes.
Our YouTube feed is now back up. What the users will need to do is refresh their YouTube page, and there will be a new link for the live meeting. And so we've tested it and is now back up. I just wanted to make that announcement.
Okay, thank you for that notice.
Just one point of clarification on the last item. Because you are not adopting the new one, the current code remains in effect, not the version that you had adopted and then repealed. So I think that the only difference is that the new version referenced a work plan. Do you want me to come back with another ordinance with the 7 members that references the work plan, or do you just want to remain with the current code?
Okay, so I would tell the council, it is true that the Planning Commission does take up whatever is coming their way and all that, but they also do have a work plan of things that they want to study and look at. So I don't think a work plan is a bad idea. It's not that the Planning Commission has to do that, but as to what they're going to study or work with staff, like to do specific plans or something that needs to be updated, that should be in the work plan so that we can see it, so we kind of know what's coming up. That would be all that would be a work plan.
Would it be inappropriate to get a little input on that from the 2 planning commissioners we have here today?
I don't think so. If you'd like to hear that. So Mr. Crandall or Mr. Brown, if you would like to comment on a work plan for the Planning Commission, what it might look like if there was one, if we made that requirement, or should we get rid of that requirement?
Well, you make a good point about the study sessions. Most of the study sessions are very focused on, we just did an in-depth review of South El Camino Real and the current general plan and zoning to see what we could do to stir more development down there. So that was kind of internalized, but was within this current general plan. I think we could go on before it, like you say, we take what comes to us on the agenda, what's handed to us, what you, the council, approve, but the staff comes to you for approval for general plan amendments, so we can actually live without a work plan and still do our study session. So if that's the current ordinance, I would proceed with that.
So it is the current ordinance. If we just state here that the work plan, as we understand it, is what is current projects before the city or study sessions. That's the work plan, you know. I'm just wondering, Madam Clerk, is it hard to change the ordinance now by a vote? It would take a second reading and all of that. That's why I'm saying, if we just kind of say what the work plan is, can't we just leave that in the ordinance? How about it's an update to the council of what the Planning Commission is currently working on with staff?
It's up to you. If you want it in the code to require it ongoing, we should probably amend the code. You know, it would not delay you really, because you will be appointing 7 members. That was the concern initially, you know, on whether you would know how many commissioners to appoint. At this point, it would just be a cleanup item that I could easily amend the ordinance, bring it to you at the next meeting for introduction if you want the work plan included. That would make it consistent with all the other commissions and committees.
No, I understand that, but I remember from the subcommittee that was more Mayor Bain's change to ask for a work plan. But I understand the Planning Commission is whatever is currently going on in the city, that's their work plan. So I think you just said something different than I heard before. The current code says that there shall be a work plan.
No, the current code does not.
Okay, then I'm good unless somebody wants to change that. I don't need a work plan. I just would ask staff, you know, city manager to tell the planning staff that just every so often we would like every quarter, maybe we would like an update of what the Planning Commission is working on. But we can certainly look at the minutes of you know, and look at their meetings to be updated.
Madam Mayor, as I was the
Yes.
chair of the Planning Commission for 3 years, and I reported to the council.
I know.
If you'd like to go that route, and I would get with the city clerk, and I would be put on the agenda. And so you could do that on a quarterly basis and just have the chairman of the Planning Commission.
Yeah.
I used to
Yeah.
just kind of wrap up what we had done on the last quarter's agenda and take a look at the future stuff. I would work with the city planner, and then I would get with the city clerk's office and put it on the agenda. And I would prepare a kind of a staff outline for Joanne for her minutes.
Yeah, I mean, that's all we need is just an update of what's going on. They don't need a work plan. So I'm not desirous of changing the
No,
code.
I see what they're doing is more transactional. And
Yes.
What
Sure.
comes to them is what they deal with, as opposed to other committees and commissions
Right.
are looking at addressing issues.
If
where
it's 6
they're-
pages or 1,600 pages, just deal it to us.
So-
Did I hear you volunteer for another term?
It sounded like that to me also. You have to get,
You can't
the
trust the
general
Army.
has to approve that.
I figured after 11 years, probably you need time for new blood. And like you say, you want to put some new people on it. I think Bart's considering reapplying. He's been on the design reviews, an architect, ran his own company for many years. He's I think will help the transition. I'm not so sure about the others, but you know, I'll reconsider it. But I think I kind of figured it was time after 11 years and 40 meetings on the general plan and a few other great times.
How many hours, Don?
I don't have no idea.
Oh, I thought you would know.
Don, you've done a great job and
Yes.
you've done yeoman's work for the city and we
Yeah,
all
thank you.
appreciate it.
It's been a great run. It's been a great time.
Thank you,
Thank you.
Don.
And
Thanks,
working
Don.
with the staff's been awesome too.
So Madam Clerk, we're denying taking action on the new ordinance and we're going to keep it the same as the old one.
Okay.
Thank you.
Moving on to new business. Next item is the warrant register and payroll register.
Council, is there a motion to approve?
Motion to. Oh,
Okay, so there's, Laura, just wait one moment. So there's a motion on the floor. Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Councilmember Duncan. Councilmember Ferguson, do you have a comment?
Oh, I want to make a comment that I'm not going to approve the warrant register. I just saw just about $53,000 in lobbyist and PR consultant and strategy costs and survey consultant costs. I'm not going to go into support. So I'll be a no on that when we vote. Thank you.
Can I have, Madam Clerk, can you remind me, did Councilmember Ferguson vote against withdrawing from the toll road? I can't remember the vote.
Yes.
Tonight? Did you?
I believe
Okay.
She did.
Okay. Thank you.
Okay.
That would go along with the warrant register. So there is a motion.
Okay, so
And a
this is
second.
just the warrant register, not the payroll
Actually,
register.
is there a motion to do the
Warrant
payroll?
and payroll register.
Thank you for that. Would you amend your second to that?
Yeah, the second is for both the
Okay.
warrant and the payroll.
Thank you.
Councilmember Duncan.
Aye.
Councilmember Ferguson.
No?
Councilmember Noblock.
Aye.
Mayor Pro Tem James.
Aye.
And Mayor Ward.
Aye.
Motion carries 4-1.
Mayor Ward, I have a motion in terms of the next item up. We have many commenters for E that have been here patiently waiting as it's gotten colder. So I'm wondering, maybe we take a break and then we go to can we move E up ahead? There's some other long, major items here that
Yes.
may take a while.
So council, is there a second to move item E up after
Second.
a 5-minute break?
Did you say item E as in Edward?
E as in
Echo.
echo, thank you. Move it up, but we're going to take a 5-minute break or 10-minute? 5.
Five.
Right.
Okay.
So we're going to take a 5-minute break, and after that, we will be considering item E first. Thank you.
Okay, Councilmember Duncan.
Aye.
Councilmember Ferguson.
Aye.
Councilmember Noblock.
Aye.
Mayor Pro Tem James.
Aye.
And Mayor Ward.
Aye.
Carries 5-0.
You want to use your guy?
I think that's better.
All right, I'm going to call this meeting back in session.
Okay, the next item is consideration of adopting a non-binding resolution of support for the right to bear arms. And we do have some speaker cards, and I have one request for accommodation to read pursuant to federal law.
Okay, so Madam Clerk, can we take that one first and then
Yes.
call the speakers after that?
Yes.
Thank you.
Okay. The proposal by some on the City Council to officially associate the City of San Clemente with endorsement of a pro-gun resolution of support for the right to bear arms is an outrage. How dare you presume to speak for all or even the majority of residents of San Clemente on this controversial issue? Your arrogance is astonishing and shameful. This proposal has nothing at all to do with making San Clemente a better place to live, presumably the reason you sought office and were elected in the first place. You are way out of line here. I am sure that I am not alone in not wanting our hometown to be officially associated in any way with pro-gun attitudes. These are your personal views and should be expressed as such, not imposed upon us as any official position supposedly representing the city or its residents. Your private views are just that. If you want to express them as a private citizen, fine, but don't abuse your elected position by forcing upon us your personal views and then falsely representing them as the views of the residents of San Clemente, whom you apparently don't know at all and don't care at all to represent. Do your job to make San Clemente a better place to live. Don't force your personal beliefs on your constituents for your own personal and political gain. I suspect that some of you have political motivations for making and supporting this proposal, as you imagine greater political ambitions in your future. But don't presume in your arrogance to use us, your constituents, to further your own personal political ambitions. Don't presume to speak for us on this controversial issue that has nothing at all to do with what you were elected for. Reject this ridiculous, politically motivated proposal. Serve, don't abuse, or attempt to use your constituents for your own imagined future political gain. Vote no on this proposal designed to serve the political ambitions of some council members rather than the residents of San Clemente, our peaceful home by the sea. For God's sake, do your job and cut out this disgusting politically motivated nonsense. This shameful politically motivated proposal is an abuse of office by council members, which attempts to use citizens for council members' personal political gain rather than serving the people. Furthermore, it violates the city's mission statement to foster a tradition. Was that the timer? Okay. A statement to foster a tradition dedicated to maintaining a safe, healthy atmosphere in which to live, work, and play, guiding development to ensure responsible growth while preserving and enhancing our village character, unique environment, and natural amenities, providing for the city's long-term stability through promotion of economic vitality and diversity, resulting in a balanced community committed to protection of what is valued today while meeting tomorrow's needs. How does endorsement of right to bear arms enhance any of these goals? Stick with city business. Don't force your beliefs on us. And it's not a name on it, just CK. Okay, so the first speaker is Carol Montgomery.
Good evening. My name is Carol Montgomery, and I have lived in our beautiful city of San Clemente for 27 years. I am also a volunteer with Moms Demand Action for Gun Sense in America, and I represent more than 200 Moms Demand Action supporters right here in San Clemente. For the record, we are not an anti-gun organization. Rather, we are anti-gun violence and work every day to make a difference in America's gun violence epidemic, an epidemic unique to our country among other high-income countries around the world. I believe Mayor Pro Tem Gene James' resolution on tonight's agenda under item number 9E is needlessly divisive, potentially dangerous, and should not be passed. These types of resolutions are a recipe for chaos. They undermine the rule of law. They lead to distrust in law enforcement and confuse people. I've made this point before, but I make it again here tonight. Do we really want our Spanish village by the sea to be labeled with such a divisive title as a Second Amendment sanctuary city, especially with the state of our country, with more than 100 people killed by guns every day in America and gun death after gun death in the news? Everyone is entitled to their own opinion, and you can like or dislike any law you want, but you can't decide to not enforce laws you don't like. It's the job of our elected officials and law enforcement to follow the laws on the books. And California's gun safety laws have led to our status as a leader in gun violence prevention and proof that gun safety laws do work. Because of our laws, California ranks near last in the country for gun violence. Given the overwhelming opposition to this resolution, it baffles me that this resolution is once again on the city's agenda. I believe, as many other residents do, that making our Spanish village by the sea a Second Amendment sanctuary city is a dangerous recipe for confusion and chaos, and we sincerely hope to not see this resolution come back again. This is a waste of our time and taxpayers' dollars. Thank you for your consideration.
The next speaker is Jennifer Massey.
Thank you, City Council members, for all the hard work you do to benefit all of us. We are really grateful for. We know the time it takes. My son is now on the City Council and Mayor of Hermosa Beach, and he's also an environmental lawyer, and he's on trial now. He wears a white hat, and so he's very, very busy. So I appreciate how busy you people are, and grateful for the time you take to help make our lives better here in San Clemente. So thank you very much. First, I would also like to acknowledge my great respect and love for a real gentleman with whom I shared many laughs from mostly opposite sides of the political spectrum. Bill gave his heart to San Clemente. So, he's a special guy. Regarding turning San Clemente into a Second Amendment sanctuary city, number one, I'd like to know how many times our sheriff's department has been called out for home invasions where homeowners would have needed a gun to protect their families. In other words, I don't read about this in our local paper, and I don't hear about it from Scuttlebutt, so I'm concerned about what we really need guns for. Number two, one hunting rifle per person of age and training is okay if licensed. Number three, there should be no guns in San Clemente with multiple chambers of bullets, which are not needed by hunters. They're only needed by murderers. Number four, I would like to propose a San Clemente buyback program of the current, according to Mr. James, 20,000 guns in San Clemente. So again, I'd like to propose a buyback program so we can rid our city of guns. Number five, we need to support and ask Michael Evan to support AB 876 and AB 311 to fight against ghost guns and introduce safer firearms in California and enhance police accountability and transparency. I thank you very much for your time.
The next speaker is Fiona Carroll.
Good evening. I'm shivering from the cold, not from being nervous. This is the first time I've actually been involved in local politics. I'm here to oppose the irresponsible and inappropriate resolution from Mayor Pro Tem James, turning our beloved seaside village into an unpopular political statement. The first question I have is, why would someone push an agenda item that receives overwhelming opposition and then continue to push it after failing to get enough support? The organization I volunteer with is Moms Demand Action for Gun Safety. It's not anti-gun or anti-gun violence. Does the council know that firearms are a leading cause of death, actually tied with accidents, automobile accidents, for children and teenagers in this country? Every day, more than 100 people are shot and killed in America. Volunteers with Mom Demand Action work daily to support common sense gun safety laws focused on reducing gun violence, and this resolution is anything but common sense. A majority of Americans, including gun owners, support common sense gun safety laws. I have experienced the myth of guns for protection in my personal life, beginning when I was 16 and my 12-year-old neighbor was shot and killed when he pointed a toy gun at a car in the parking lot at midnight mass. Guns have taken my grandfather, injured and traumatized my son's friends at the Vegas massacre, killed a neighbor's son in the Parkland shooting, killed my nephew's stepfather, and traumatized my students with active shooter drills. I am both haunted by and motivated to take action by the daily toll of gun violence and the resulting trauma in our country. Additionally, proposing this resolution harms the image of San Clemente. The message the resolution sends is that this city chooses not to follow state or federal gun safety laws, laws which work. Thanks to California's leadership in gun safety, we rank near last in the nation for gun violence, and yet Californians are still able to purchase and own firearms legally and safely. Lastly, this resolution could negatively affect tourism and be confusing to residents and law enforcement. Judging by the turnout at this meeting, given attention to this idea is very divisive and presents problems and confusion on many levels. The first court case in the country to decide if it's even legal to declare Second Amendment sanctuary is being tried now in Oregon. Does the city really want to get involved in this controversy and its resulting legal challenges? Is this what we want to be known for? The job of our city government is to solve problems, not create new ones. Please send a message to Second Amendment extremists everywhere by voting no on agenda item 9E and never consider it again in the future. Thank you very much.
The next speaker is Bill Crutinshire.
Good evening, Mayor Ward, Council. I'm not with any particular organization on this subject. I was an FFL holding a federal firearms licensed manufacturer for about 5 years. I was a state authorized pistol dealer in New York, and I've got guns at home locked up, and used to be an NRA instructor. I hear the merits of people who support the Second Amendment, and I very much hear the merits of people who oppose unrestricted, unregulated access to firearms. What the resolution before you now is really just politicking. It's non-binding, and there's nothing in it that should get Second Amendment advocates excited, and there's plenty in it to kind of invoke concern from people who aren't of that mind. I urge you all to vote no on this resolution. Thank you.
The next speaker is Donna Vidrine.
I'm going to speak for two individuals that aren't here. I have their comments and they've authorized me to speak for them. So if it's okay, I will read Lisa Spinelli's first. Sanctuary. The original meaning of sanctuary is a sacred place or refuge or safety. Isn't this an oxymoron? Guns are not about safe sanctuary. Guns are about killing, suffering, and violence. We have our sheriff's department for our safety. Why even bring up the subject if our city is mostly inhabited by loving, caring, compassionate people living here in peace and harmony? This discussion creates fear and terror in our consciousness. Don't we hear more than enough about guns and killings on the news constantly? This entire subject is a waste of our precious time and our emotional energy. What does Gene James think about the dilemma of ghost guns in our society? Ye gods, should they be outlawed? What does the sheriff's department say? Mr. James does have a commendable background based on security and violent crime prevention. So obviously he has a long time dedication to this field. However, having our city perceived as a city of ignorant, trigger-happy, red-necked gun lovers is not for us. We are not naive. There is crime. That's why we hire our OC sheriffs. By the way, what do they think of this idea? Lisa Spinelli, resident of San Clemente. Okay, the second comments that I'm going to read are from Warren Vidrine. Warren Vidrine says, I am a gun owner and I was an NRA member for almost half my lifetime until the gun ammo manufacturers lobby bought them. Growing up, I served as a junior NRA gun safety instructor, and I hunted frequently to supplement my family's meat supply. I come from a hunting and fishing culture where firearms are valued and used regularly. I still hunt with my family and appreciate wild game. The proposed right to bear arms resolution is misguided and foolish and will do our community harm. It looks like boilerplate pasted straight out of an extremist site. Our nation operates under the rule of law, and our council is not the proper venue to attempt to establish constitutionality questions. Attempts at nullification underlie our own civil war. Our sheriff is sworn to uphold the law, not determine questions of constitutionality. Owning guns is a right. Like all other rights, it must operate under rational limits. Waiting periods, record searches, and the registration of sales are prudent protections from those who are morally or mentally unfit for safe ownership. Open carry is problematic and generally unwise. To do so in a public demonstration can be an aggressive act, an exercise in intimidation and escalation, the true opposite of a well-regulated militia. We are not Charlottesville. Do not create an attraction for such extremists. Vote no. And then my comments tonight are, Councilman James has stated he has concerns about the citizens of San Clemente having the right to be safe and secure in their homes. Councilman James stated he has concerns and worries about the state taking away his Second Amendment rights. He proposed this resolution as an agenda item April 6th and delayed it to answer emails he received criticizing his efforts. These public comments have not been read aloud as requested, even though this was an agenda item and action was taken by Councilman James to obtain additional support for his proposed resolution. It is proper to read all the public comments submitted from San Clemente residents April 6 that speak to this resolution. This resolution is modeled after similar ones in Texas as a reaction by the gun lobby and extremists to common sense gun laws. It is meant to circumvent state laws. It has no legal bearing, but serves to cause chaos and make our city look foolish and extremist. I own a gun. I do not feel my gun rights are in danger and absolutely do not want to be known as a sanctuary city for gun right extremists. I support sensible gun laws to include background checks and restricting the use of military or assault weapons. Person owning guns need to accept responsibility that comes with that constitutional right. Do not waste city resources on this totally unnecessary resolution. Gun laws are to be respected and enforced, not decided by city council or interpreted by the OCSD. Do not create problems and divisions where it is not appropriate or requested. I do not need city council to protect my Second Amendment rights to own and bear arms. I do not want to be identified as a Second Amendment sanctuary city. Do the work and provide the leadership you were elected to do. Donna Vidrine. Thank you.
Okay, I have cards from Lisa Spinelli and Warren Vidrine, but I believe those were just read. So the next comment is anonymous. If they decline, provide your name if you wish to speak. That concludes concludes the public comments. Oh.
Greetings, Council, and I also really appreciate everything that you're doing for us. I've been a 20-year resident in San Clemente, and I'm curious, like other speakers have expressed, why or what Mayor Pro Tem James and also Council Member Knobloch hope to gain if San Clemente becomes a sanctuary city for guns. I'm asking, what advantage do we as residents in San Clemente have if that passes? If you would like to comment. Does either
So
member care to comment as to what we would gain?
the council doesn't comment. Whether they want to during council comments to comment on that will be up to them. But we won't answer at this point. We can't do that.
Oh, you cannot
No.
answer? Okay. I would like to express that I consider life itself a team sport. Life for me is a team sport. Once we bring arms into our society by design, that totally breaks the concept of a team and of a community. And I would like you to consider the benefit of living in a community as opposed to a divided, by design, community. A unified community compared to a directly dividing the community. Thank you.
So, Madam Clerk, that is all the public comments?
That's all.
Okay.
Excuse me, Mayor Ward. Hi, I have a question for the city clerk. City clerk, the last time this was agendized, some residents had asked about the comments that were submitted for the April 6th meeting when this was first on the agenda. And I can't remember if it was you or Ms. Campanolo that said only those comments submitted for that meeting on April 6th when it was originally agendized would be read aloud.
Yes, and then at a subsequent meeting, council directed that I just email those to council, so those were provided.
Okay, thank you very much. I wasn't aware of that. Thanks.
Okay. So we're on item E. I'm going to make a quick comment to Councilmember Mayor Pro Tem James. This has gotten a lot of attention at the paper and tonight and all of that. And I would just ask you to use tonight to get all of these out, but consider whether we should table this and not add it as an actual resolution to our city. That's my request, just to consider it.
Yeah, I have a lot of respect for you, Mayor Ward. I think we should have an up-down vote on this evening.
Okay.
This is about the Constitution of the United States, and I do think our Second Amendment rights are under attack. I was only looking for the city, and you heard some of the comments this evening. I'm not going to attack people. Words like redneck, words like extremist, words like Second Amendment extremist. Gun owners are law-abiding citizens. And we love America as much as you love America. We love our life as much as you love our life. We may have a different opinion, but you don't see law-abiding citizens committing horrendous crimes with firearms. You don't see law-abiding citizens abusing their rights under the Second Amendment. I would suggest if people have so many issues with the Second Amendment, that they start a grassroots campaign to repeal the Second Amendment. Amendments have been repealed into the Constitution, but I don't see anyone doing that. So as much respect as I have for you, Mayor Ward, I'm not going, I'm going to ask for an up and down vote on this. And that's about all I have to say.
So Mayor Protem, the only reason I say that is this isn't specifically a city issue. It's not something that we weigh in on, and saying our personal statements is one thing, but ascribing it to the actual city of San Clemente is another. And we're nonpartisan here, but I don't think anyone is saying that we're calling anyone criminals or doing that, but ascribing San Clemente as a sanctuary city for anything is just anything at all, I think is divisive. And there's certainly been some things that went around, I think 2 years ago, where people were saying that their cities were sanctuary cities, and our city council specifically did not do that. We did not take that up because it was not a city issue. We didn't have people rioting at our council meetings like they were at other councils that took it up. And I specifically can't remember which cities they were, but anyway, I respect you also, and I just ascribe to the fact that we are nonpartisan, and I very much hold dear to that. And
would we be opposed to a resolution regarding free speech in the First Amendment, or the right to privacy in the Fourth Amendment, or even equal protection of the law, the 14th Amendment? I don't think that would draw the ire. I don't think words like redneck or extremist would be used. So I made the motion. Councilmember Knobloch seconded that motion, and I move for a vote.
I'd like to make a few comments, Mayor Ward, just before that.
yes, go ahead.
And I'm not going to be critical of my compadre, Mayor Pro Tem James. Sure gets a lot of criticism out there already, and unnecessarily so in a lot of other areas. I hope everyone's aware of that. But I am going to be critical of this resolution. Well, I'm not big for non-binding resolutions as a general matter, or frankly, proclamations. I think we've got enough regular business to keep us busy without a lot of non-binding, policies coming before us. And I think this point has been made, but this is non-binding. It doesn't override constitutional law, federal law, or state law. So in that sense, it's purely ineffectual. But even though it's ineffectual, I think there is a perception out there that could come from it. And frankly, I'm a little worried for our businesses as we enter this economic boom that we all hope is going to happen. And I am concerned about the perception this could bring to our town, about whether people might want to visit a town like that, that has passed a resolution like this. That concerns me for our small businesses. And I'm also concerned for our kids for the same perception reasons. I'm not so worried about gun owners in San Clemente. I'm worried about gun owners outside of San Clemente who might feel free to come into our town if a resolution like this passes. And I want to make a point too, which is, we have a program, the Gang Reduction Intervention Partnership. Laura, I know you worked very hard on that and spent a lot of time on it. That's a program that was started when we had some gang activity. And I think this runs sort of counter to that program. At least it might be perceived as so. And I'm worried for our deputies, frankly, too, because more people coming into town with guns that puts them in danger. So with all that, I'm going to be voting no on the resolution.
Can we still be friends?
Absolutely.
Yeah,
Go ahead,
Well, I
Councilmember
have a
Nobel.
comment, and I respect all of my colleagues, and I appreciate the comments that were made tonight by the folks that have come in to express their opinion. I would like to say that this is not, as the mayor suggested, a partisan issue. The resolution before us is not extreme. It doesn't promote lawlessness. The Second Amendment is the law of the land. And like it or not, we have a major national effort right now to diminish or rescind the Second Amendment, and that's of concern. The Second Amendment is not just for the protection against criminals or for personal safety. It certainly does that. But most importantly, it prevents the tyranny of those that govern us. Nations that are the most totalitarian, tyrannical, and evil in our world are those that have first disarmed their populace. And it's in this past century alone, these nations have taken the lives of over 100 million human beings, mothers, children, uncles, dads, nieces, nephews. And that's a terrible thing. So I believe we need to stand strong to make a statement that our constitutional rights need to be upheld, protected, and we don't want to go down the road ultimately of the totalitarian states that many people in this country would like to see occur now. And I think we need to stay strong for our Constitution. So I can support the resolution and plan on voting for it.
Can I ask the makers of this motion, what cities have adopted these type of resolutions? Cities in California?
Needles is the only other city.
Anywhere else in the United States?
Scattered across several states. I know there are cities in Texas that have. I'm not sure about any place else.
I just don't think this rises to the need of that our arms are being taken from us and the need to do this. I don't think any one person on this council is against the U.S. Constitution or any of the amendments. Absolutely not. And what I said was not that this was a partisan issue. I said that our positions are nonpartisan, and we don't take up issues that are not city issues. They are not in our purview to do. So this is outside of our purview, and it's a personal thing that is being asked of this council to do. It's not a city issue, and that's why I'm asking that it not be, taken to a vote of a resolution.
I would call for the question unless Councilwoman Ferguson has a comment.
Councilmember Ferguson.
No, I have no comments. Thank you.
All right, Madam Clerk.
Okay, Mayor Pro Tem James, you do need to read the title, and it would be resolution number 2115.
And just to be clear, there's no resolution in our packet. So is this just a resolution of what you said?
Madam Clerk, did you get the resolution out?
It's very
Yes, I printed
problematic
it
to
out.
approve a resolution that the public has not seen. It would have to be a resolution just stating what you're going to state.
Okay.
I guess the city attorney that Mayor Pro Tem James provided us with a draft this afternoon. Do we need to bring it into the city's format and then come back, or?
Normally, we make a vote for a resolution, and then that resolution comes back for final approval, but this one has not been circulated.
Yeah, so we're at an open meeting here. What we have to do is make the resolution available to members of the public who are here, who desire to see it, or continue it over till it's formatted and brought back in the city.
I think we should address this issue. Can it be that the motion is to consider in the future, perhaps next meeting, a resolution to be determined, and that resolution would obviously have to come back for public review. But today we're just deciding whether to even take that step to consider doing a resolution. Isn't that a proper
Is
motion?
that where we are? Then, yeah, if it's to consider and have that text brought back, then that motion's in order without further ado.
Is that your motion?
I'm not going to move that, but
Would it
that
be-
seems like a proper motion.
Question
That's
of
your
the-
motion, Gene.
Question of the city attorney, would it be appropriate to read the resolution?
We could do that too.
And pass
Yeah,
the
it just has to
resolution
be
as read?
available to the
But
public.
It
that's
has to
here.
be available and for them to be able to comment on. We would have to take public comment again, right? If that resolution is read, because the audience and members of the public do not know what that resolution says.
The Brown X says it has to be made available to people who want to see it when it's at the time it's made available to the council. So if it were to be passed tonight, we'd have to deal with that. If it's to be brought back, then that's not an issue.
Right. So I thought tonight you were just going to make a motion that we send a letter that says, you know, whatever you said, but normally resolutions are in our packet for public viewing.
Yeah, that was I thought the resolution was, I sent the resolution, evidently did not occur. So I have the resolution. I could read it, or we can move it to the next meeting.
If it's read, then that's adequate.
Okay.
If it's that short.
So, okay, resolution of the City Council of the City of San Clemente, California, declaring the city to be a Second Amendment sanctuary city, whereas the City Council of the City of San Clemente, pursuant to the Charter of the City of San Clemente, is vested with the authority of administrating the affairs of the city, whereas the Second Amendment to the United States Constitution, adopted in 1791 as part of the Bill of Rights, protects the inalienable and individual rights of the people to keep and bear arms. And whereas the United States Supreme Court in the District of Columbia versus Heller affirmed an individual's right to possess firearms unconnected with service in a militia for traditionally lawful purposes such as self-defense within the home, whereas the United States Supreme Court in McDonald versus Chicago affirmed that the right of an individual to keep and bear arms is protected under the Second Amendment and incorporated by the Due Process Clause of the 14th Amendment to apply also to the states, such that the states cannot deprive people of their liberty without due process of law, whereas Article 1, Section 8, Clause 3 of the United States Constitution, the Commerce Clause, provides that the United States Congress shall have the power to regulate commerce with foreign nations and among several states and within the Indian tribes. And whereas Article 1, Section 1 of the California Constitution provides that all people are by nature free and independent and have inalienable rights. Among these are enjoying and defending life and liberty, acquiring and possessing and protecting property, and pursuing and obtaining safety, happiness, and privacy. And whereas Article 1, Section 7 of the California Constitution provides that a person may not be deprived of life, liberty, or property without due process of law or denied equal protection of the laws, whereas Article 1, Section 13 of the California Constitution provides that the right of the people to be secure in their persons, houses, papers, and effects against unreasonable seizures and searches may not be violated. And whereas Article 1, Section 19 of the California Constitution provides that private property may be taken or damaged for a public use only when just compensation ascertained by a jury, unless waived, has first been paid to and into court for the owner and the state of California. Supreme Court has indicated this indicates compensation for permanent or temporary interference with the physical use, possession, disposition, and or employment of property. Whereas it is the desire of the City Council of San Clemente to declare its support for the Second Amendment of the Constitution.
I will second that motion. Call for the question.
I lost my place of where you ended. What page is that?
Oh, I have another page.
Yeah,
Whereas,
that's
I'm
why-
sorry, the City of San Clemente supports the rights of citizens and taxpayers to defend themselves, whereas it is the desire of the City Council to declare its support for the free flow of commerce between the citizens of the city and the citizens of the United States of America, consistent with Commerce Clause of the United States Constitution and the full support of the Second Amendment for the citizens of the city. And whereas California laws regulating firearms and ammunition are over-restrictive and have impaired and will continue to impair the free flow of commerce among and between the state of California and other states, and the ability of citizens to lawfully exercise their rights with immediate adverse impacts on the city and its residents. And whereas the federal government has now introduced H.R. 127 by Congresswoman Jackson Lee of Texas, whereas H.R. 127 would place even harsher restrictions on the citizens of the United States, California, and the city, and would greatly infringe on the principles upheld in both the United States Constitution and the California Constitution, and would again do nothing to protect law-abiding citizens. Now, therefore, the City Council of the City of San Clemente does resolve, declare, and determine and order as follows. Section 1, that the City of San Clemente be hereby declared to be a Second Amendment sanctuary city. Section 2, that the City Council affirms its support for the County Sheriff in his exercise of sound discretion to not enforce against any person or unconstitutional firearms and ammunition laws within the city. Section 3, that the City of San Clemente will not appropriate funds for the purpose of enforcing any law that unconstitutionally infringes upon the right of the people of the city or the people in neighboring states to keep and bear arms. Section 4, that the City of San Clemente affirms its support for the free flow of commerce among and between the city and neighboring communities in the United States, and demands that the California State Legislature cease adopting and rescind unlawfully restrictive firearm and ammunition laws that violate the Commerce Clause of the United States Constitution by improperly impairing the free flow of commerce between the states, of which serve to infringe upon the rights of citizens to exercise their rights under both the United States Constitution and or the California State Constitution. Section 5, that the state of California adopt a policy of reciprocal for concealed carry permit holders or other states, thereby restore the free flow of commerce between the states. Section 6, that the state of California refuses to adopt and enforce unconstitutional laws made by executive order or by the federal government that would infringe upon the constitutional rights of the citizens of the city and the state of California. Section 7, the precedent for such action being taken in 2017 by the state of California in their refusal to uphold federal immigration directives and proclaim the state free from enacting federal law that they deemed unconstitutional in nature. The courts in this matter denying oversight immunity and allowing sanctuary status to stand. Section 8, that the city clerk is hereby directed to prepare and deliver copies of this resolution to all members of the California State Legislature and to the office of the government.
That concludes your motion?
That concludes my motion.
I'll second the motion.
No, the audience can't do a point of order unless you're too hot or too cold. Okay, so city attorney, does that suffice for the council to rule on that resolution? Does that suffice for notice?
It meets the legal requirements. I would suggest that because there was quite a bit, I haven't seen the resolution, but because there was quite a bit there, I do think to err on the side of caution, the council should ask the public, now that they've heard it read, if anybody has further comments on it. I'd suggest you do that if you're going to act tonight.
All right. So Madam Clerk, would you go through the cards for this item and ask those people if they want to speak?
Okay.
If they do, they need to come to the podium.
Okay, first was our anonymous speaker. Donna Vadrine.
And I think it should be just people that are here.
Yeah, they could
okay.
just come up.
Thank you.
I don't think that the city council has the authority to instruct the police that they don't have to follow state and federal law. Can we ask the city attorney to comment on that? That's part of the resolution that I heard Councilman James just read. I have objection to a lot of it, but that one just struck me very strongly, and I find that improper.
Bill Crutinshire.
Council, that was a very, very long resolution that in many places seemed to not make a lot of sense. At various points, it mentioned just how very strong and robust the Second Amendment is. We had one council member say that there didn't appear to be any grassroots organization trying to repeal the Second Amendment. And then we had another member say that apparently there is one and they're out to get you. It's just a lot of back and forth. It just seems totally nonsensical. And I don't know in what section of city code would this go? It just defies logic. I don't understand how this works in any meaningful way. Thank you.
Fiona Carroll.
I just want to mention that my organization is also pro Second Amendment, and there are many, many gun owners in our group, and we're not trying to do anything to go against the Second Amendment. We're just trying to save lives, keep guns away from dangerous people, and to give people, for example, another personal story was I was in Santa Barbara when the Isla Vista shooting happened, and the parents of that gentleman begged law enforcement to take his guns away. He said he was going to kill people, and he was an adult. They said, sorry, there's nothing we can do. And he ended up, murdering a bunch of students in Santa Barbara. My neighbor's daughter was in the sorority house that was shot at. And they subsequently got very active, and they passed a red flag law. So now family members with people in crisis can go to a judge and say, we need to take these firearms away. They're going to hurt themselves or somebody else. And that's one of the laws that my organization is trying to get passed state by state by state. So hopefully we'll get that as a federal law someday. But it's about saving lives. It's not about taking anyone's guns away. No one is wanting to take your guns away. Lawful gun owners are protected, and there's no reason for this. It's ridiculous, insane. And it's especially with what's happening in our country right now, day after day after day. I mean, I invite you to please become a member of my organization, because you get daily stories of the 2 out of over 100 deaths. A lot of them are toddlers that find the firearm on the nightstand and shoot their sibling or their parents. I mean, it's insane. And labeling us as a place where we're not going to follow the California and state and federal laws is ridiculous.
Jennifer Massey.
I have actually, I'm incapable of saying anything positive about guns. The only thing I can say now is just for the San Clemente voter to remember the people who voted for this when they're up for election, re-election.
Carol Montgomery.
I'd like to add just one comment. I don't know why you feel that your Second Amendment is being taken away in any form. No one is trying to take away the Second Amendment. The Constitution protects the Second Amendment. We don't have to worry about it. Thank you.
We just received a new speaker card from Anne, the last name. Okay, you want to come up?
Yeah, so if there's a precedent set already on San Clemente not being a sanctuary city, deciding not to be a sanctuary city, I don't know, I don't understand the need. We have the Constitution, you named a bunch of different provisions in different government entities. If I were on the city council, I would like to look at all of that, all of the documentation and find out exactly what it is that you're referring to. Mayor Pro Tem, I don't understand why everything is being funneled into a sieve, and you're asking the population of a city to say, come to whomever is out there with guns, come to here. I don't understand the need to say, come with your guns. What's it going to do to your property value? Is it going to go up because people have guns? And then your property value will go up because they have guns? Or is it going to go down because people don't want to live around guns? There are too many kids already who are out playing with submachine guns, with assault rifles, competing against each other. And the only way that they know that these are not real arms is that they have an orange cap on the end of the barrel. Otherwise, they're thrilled that they look like the real thing. And they suit up and they go out and they practice and they compete. And I don't think that a resolution such as this for Sanctuary City has any benefit to humanity. Thank you.
Okay, so is there an and also?
Thank you very much. I think it would really help if we had a written copy of this resolution to be reviewed by the entire city rather than having taken this up at this time. It's quite a lengthy resolution, and I personally would like to see this in writing. So perhaps it may be able to be tabled to another meeting so that we could review it. Thank you very much.
City Clerk, there's one additional commenter, I think, over here.
Okay, would you like to approach the podium and then give me a speaker card, please?
If I could just interject, Mayor, since someone has asked for a copy of what was distributed, that has to be provided. So you won't be able to act until Anne has been given that copy and the city manager is seeing to printing it up.
I just want to build.
Would you rather do that than have it be at another meeting where it's noticed and everyone can read the copy?
What's the option? What's the other option?
The other option is we all wait for
It has
all
to
the
be printed
copies to be made.
because the previous speaker asked for a copy,
Right.
and the Brown Act prohibits you asking.
Can we copy here?
Yeah, the city manager is
Yeah, sure.
arranging for printing. So
All right, let's hear
All right.
if everyone's here, we can hear the public comment. Go
My
ahead.
name is John Montgomery, and I'm a resident of San Clemente. I just think this process tonight has been sloppy and not transparent. The fact that you read a 2-page resolution that goes way beyond just the designation of a sanctuary city with Second Amendment rights is ridiculous. You're asking the council to direct the city clerk to send a policy political statement to the state legislature. You're asking the council, the city clerk, to direct the sheriff's department to do certain things. It was not part of the debate or understanding of the public prior to the night's meeting. It's ridiculous. It's sloppy, sloppy, sloppy. The fact that you gave the city clerk a copy of this draft a few hours prior to tonight's meeting and the public never saw it is ridiculous. It's not right. The city attorney should be directing us to continue this to the next meeting so that the public can understand what the heck this resolution says and why this is occurring. Because I can guarantee you, there'll be a lot more people here protesting this resolution because of what it says. Why is the city council of San Clemente going to make this political statement to the state legislature? Does the city, is that what the citizens of San Clemente want? I don't think so. This should be either tabled or denied or continued so that the public has an opportunity to properly make comments to understand what this resolution says.
And we have one more speaker card from Deke Van Noort.
In addition to the other reasons that we've heard here tonight, after hearing that resolution, I just can't believe that that's really what we would go forward with. I'm a lawyer. I couldn't understand half of what that was saying. And the fact that the person reading it and then the person seconding it didn't even know when it was over and then kept reading and no one even realized, it was seconds before you even realized what the content of it was. It just seems ridiculous that we would throw this out here for the first time tonight, to drag our entire city into this for the first time tonight with just, the dozen or 2 dozen people here getting to hear this thing for the first time. So I think it just should be denied outright, but at least table it and let the entire city see what this thing actually says.
Next speaker is Judy Jones.
Yes, I'm Judy Jones. I'm a 25-year resident of San Clemente, and I was not here tonight to speak on this issue, but that rambling resolution, I want a copy of that too. I think maybe all of us here want a copy of that. So can we all have copies and sit here and study it and read it ourselves? The second thing, I think somebody alluded to this issue, is we do not tell the Orange County Sheriff what laws to enforce. We in San Clemente do not. I don't know whether our gentleman back here would like to comment on that, and that may not be his duty to do that. But I have experience with trying to have a meeting with another group that wanted to talk to our chief of police in San Clemente, and he had asked permission from the Orange County Sheriff, who said, no, he could not talk to us. So that's how the orders flow in our law enforcement in the city. We do not have our own police. We have a police under the Orange County Sheriff. There's a number of things that I would speak to, and I already sent a letter into all of you. I don't know whether you all read it or not, but this resolution that I listened to, it just meandered around about compensation and commerce without really explaining what that had to do with it and how we in San Clemente would have anything to do with that. The commerce of the state of California is not run by the city of San Clemente. So I just was not able to follow that, and I do not consider that I'm a stupid person and that I can't understand a resolution. So thank you for that.
So, Madam Mayor, in fairness to everyone who wants to review this, and I would move that we defer this to our meeting on whatever, June 1st, is it?
Yes, it is June 1st.
And we'll table it until then.
Okay, and I would invite maybe some revisions to pare it down.
Sure.
If that's possible, just a friendly.
Absolutely.
Okay. Is there a second?
So the motion, the document that's been circulated, the clerk, that many of the folks here have not seen, that's going to be be circulated with the agenda for our next meeting.
Yes.
So the meeting won't be tabled. This item will be
Continued.
Continued. Thank you.
Yeah, I'll second the motion.
Okay.
Continue.
So Madam Clerk, there's a motion and a second by Councilmember Noblock.
Councilmember Duncan,
Well, I'd prefer that the resolution be defeated tonight, but I guess we'll have to, yes, we'll have to kick it down the road again. So I guess I'll say aye on that to give the public a chance to review the resolution.
Councilmember Ferguson.
Before I vote, City Clerk, do you have a reason why the resolution was not included in the agenda?
Because it was scheduled for the agenda by 2 council members, and staff does not prepare documents unless
There's a third.
and we were not provided with the draft until today.
Understand. Okay, thank you. Yes, I'm fine with continuing it. Thank you.
Councilmember Noblock.
Aye.
Mayor Pro Tem James.
Aye.
And Mayor Ward.
Aye.
Carries 5-0.
Mayor Pro Tem, we did make copies, and so while I understand it's being continued, we have copies with the Deputy City Clerk for any of the public that would like to get a copy.
I would, so the mayor suggested that we pare down the resolution, so I would suggest that we retain those copies, pare down the resolution, and then make that available in our next agenda.
And that has to be.
Pare down the resolution. What changes are you suggesting?
I don't know. The mayor.
He can look at it. You know, he's the maker of the motion. He can look at it. I just gave him the option of modifying it by the next council meeting. But I understand that has to be submitted for the agenda prior to the Tuesday before, or
At the latest, the Wednesday before the next council meeting on June 1st. And so as I understand it, just to be clear, we have a vote of 5 to continue it to the next meeting, first meeting in June. And the Mayor Pro Tem, based on some of the communication that you have had, Mayor, would do some paring down of that resolution and provide it to the city clerk that Wednesday before the following council meeting. So it would be attached to the agenda for the council to deliberate on at the first meeting in June.
Agree to do that.
so that it's clear.
Okay.
Yep.
All right. Thank you.
Okay, moving to item 9B, report from the Economic Development Officer concerning the possibility of issuing a letter of support for SB 389 Dodd relating to off-sale alcohol privileges.
Mr. Lightfoot.
Good evening, Mayor and City Council. I'll be brief. The staff report includes the majority of information on this bill. This is a bring back that was discussed prior. The primary difference in this potential bill at the state level versus the one you had seen previously, this one is not as directly tied to outdoor dining in a physical space. This one's more tied to to-go alcohol. And so how that would primarily, if I summarize the impact in one way, it would be this, that residents if this bill were to pass, could include a mixed drink, for instance, with their restaurant order on a platform such as Uber Eats. So if they order a to-go meal, the typical ABC guidelines would not allow those beverages to be included in the order. This would revise the standards and regulations for the ABC and allow those restaurants then to provide to-go beverages with those meals. So that's my quick summary. I'm happy to answer any questions. Thank you.
Go ahead.
Mayor, I have concerns. I've looked at this SB 389. I have some concerns with it. Underage drinking would be one concern I have with it. Turning Avenida Del Mar into Bourbon Street West would be another concern I would have with it. So I have some, I understand the concept, what Senator Dodd is trying to get to here, but I do have some concerns about supporting this bill.
Well, maybe Jonathan could speak to that because I had the same concerns, Gene, and there's a lot of regulations in here. They cannot walk around and drink it, and it's not to be consumed in public.
Right.
And even if someone picks up to go meal, this should be in like the trunk of the car or any non-operational part of the car, not concealed in a glove box or middle compartment, things like that, because it will be an open container,
Yes.
is my understanding. And so the city of San Clemente, if we did approve this, it's my understanding that we are not saying that people can take these to go and go drink at the beach, sitting on the grass, have a picnic, things like that.
Or taking it to go order, getting in your car and opening up the container.
Yes, I think it is to not be consumed in the car. Is that correct, Jonathan? You're on mute.
Thank you. That is correct. It would not override any existing city regulations about where alcohol can be consumed. It would just allow those restaurants to provide those beverages as a takeout service. I do think that you raised some reasonable concerns about, while it doesn't authorize that, we can't completely control public behavior. And I did reach out to OCSD for comment. They're not supporting or opposing this bill, so they don't have a position on this. But I think it is reasonable for the council to consider whether or not there could be some additional calls for service potentially with something like this.
I think we should oppose or take no action on this bill.
Because you're worried, you're concerned
I have
about
the
people
same
drinking.
concerns that you've expressed. My inclination is to oppose the bill, but we don't have to oppose it. We could just take no action as another option.
Okay. Well, I asked that this come forward, Mayor Ward, and I'll just say this. My sense from our restaurant community is that they very much support this. That frankly, this allowance was what got them through the pandemic. I know that we're coming out of it, but I think we want them firing on all cylinders. They have a lot of ground to make up. And I think this is a relatively low risk way to increase their revenue stream. I do share the concerns. I think those are valid concerns, but for quite a while, we were just allowing this, right? You couldn't go into any restaurants or even outdoor dining. I never remember hearing about a single incident. Maybe there were, I never heard about them. So I would advocate that we support this with the letter that's in the staff report.
So is that a motion to
Yeah,
support?
I will. Okay, I'll make a motion.
So before you
Well,
make your motion,
let's see. Okay.
Chris, I have a question for you, actually.
Okay.
So you said the restaurant community. How many restaurants have you spoken with? Who's pushing this? Not pushing it, but who's in favor of this?
Fair question. I don't think I want to go down individual lists, but
I'm not asking who, but I mean, how many?
Yeah. Okay.
type?
Well, yeah. To be fair, I really went to the Downtown Business Association where I am the council representative, and I relied on them to sort of do the reach out and report back to me. So I didn't do the individual reach outs with all of the restaurants, but that was the clear sense I got from the Downtown Business Association was that they supported this. The restaurateurs at least.
Right.
So, I had a lot of the concerns, Gene, and every single one of them got answered when I read what was in there. I was like, if someone cracks, it's supposed to be sealed. If someone cracks that seal and they're in a car, that's an open container.
Yeah.
Which I hope would be, I would expect to be,
I read it as well. I'm concerned about the difficulty in enforcement once you are allowing to go. That's where my concern is. I got to tell you, I mean, at the height of COVID, I ordered some to-go drinks, and they were pretty good. I enjoyed doing that. I could, Chris, if you're telling me the DBA's behind this, I haven't, I should have ran this past the chamber, but it's more of a DBA issue than a chamber. So if you're telling me that the DBA is behind this, I will second your motion.
Okay.
Okay.
So, and to be clear for the audience, we're not approving this. This is just a support letter. And I believe it's changing the alcohol license to be able to do this. One thing that was interesting, Gene, is it says restaurants during the pandemic were giving out to go entire bottles of wine. That is not allowed in this. It's single serve only and they have to be sealed. That's for, and no beer is involved in this. So that, I do understand the enforcement, but let's just see if it gets passed first. I mean, it's going to have to be enforced. This is supposed to be consumed at home and not, it's not for public, and it says that in this. So I guess if, let me ask the city attorney, if this was to become law, but the cities had discretion to allow it, would that even be possible if the state approved this change to the alcohol ABC license?
Thanks, Mayor Council. The state would have to leave that local prerogative in it for you to.
So if we adopted it, but there were problems right away, we could repeal it.
Unless the state does one rule for everybody, for better or for worse, yes. So the current rules allow you some latitude there in issuing local permits for off-sale. So presumably they would, I don't know whether the legislature will leave you room to regulate in this.
Madam Mayor, my thinking on this, having listened to all the comments, is that while the DBA may be in favor of it, and I guess anything that they could do to increase sales and make money, they would be supportive of. I think we need to look to the larger community. And I'm still concerned that just stepping in the direction of having more alcohol off premise is long range problematic. And I don't think we need to, this is a state bill. It's going to go through the legislature one way or the other. I just don't think we should, if we should do anything, we should just take no position on it. But I can't support opposing or supporting the bill.
Okay. So, Councilmember Duncan, you made a motion.
Yeah, motion to support SB 389, and if we support, authorize the mayor to execute a letter in support, and that's provided in attachment 1 to the administrative report dated May 18th, 2021.
Okay.
Second.
So we will have a vote on that. Second by Mayor Pro Tem James.
Councilmember Duncan,
Aye.
Councilmember Ferguson,
No.
Councilmember Noblock,
No.
Mayor Pro Tem James.
Aye.
Mayor Ward.
Nay.
Okay, motion fails 2-3.
You convinced me.
You know, it was in there, but as Councilmember Noblock said, it will go through the state legislature, whether we send what we do or not. So I would rather wait to see.
Sure.
Thank you.
The next item is report from the Community Development Director concerning the draft housing element and safety element updates, and I do have a few speaker cards. The first is Judy Jones.
Good evening, Mayor and council members. I'm Judy Jones, a 25-year resident of San Clemente and a member of the League of Women Voters of the Orange Coast. So I'm here to read a letter that represents these 16 cities and quite a number of members living in San Clemente. The Orange County League of Women Voters supports action at all levels of government to increase the supply of safe, decent, adequate, and affordable housing for all Californians. In support of this position, we ask the San Clemente City Council to, bullet point, adopt a realistic site inventory, an equitable number of sites identified that are feasible and available for lower income development. Bullet point, proactively work with a nonprofit affordable housing developer to develop the Camino de los Mares district, combining several sites could yield a possible 91 affordable housing units. Bullet point, based on current and future needs, begin rezoning for housing sites immediately. Bullet point, rezone the following parcels of land for lower income affordable housing. Sub-bullet point, parcels 688-011-01 and 688-011-02. Two parcels on Avenida Pico owned by ECS should be zoned high density. Residential Talega, actually, for low, very low affordable housing. And another sub-bullet point, Avenida Presidio, the old city hall site. The city should donate this site and dedicate in lieu funds for building affordable housing here. The site is very favorable for success. Bullet point, create a new SB2 zoning zone by combining parcels 688-01-02 on Avenida Pico, currently owned by ECS. The existing SB2 zone is not feasible. Bullet point, ADUs are, if ADUs are included in the housing element, there must be a program to monitor affordability for lower income residents. Bullet point, the inclusionary policy for new development must require 15% be affordable, 7.5% low, and 7.5% very low, and an in lieu fee of $10,000 minimum per unit paid by the developer if the 15% is not met. Bullet point, support the San Clemente Homeless Committee in finding and implementing effective solutions to homelessness, including the conversion of existing motels to affordable housing utilizing California State Project Home Key funding. Signed sincerely, Chris Collins and Diane Need, co-chairs of the League of Women Voters Orange Coast Housing Homelessness Advocacy Team. And thank you. And I'm very, very happy to have come to this meeting tonight because I'm looking forward to when you all jump off the pier.
The next speaker is Bill Crutinshire.
I'm glad she didn't say with cement boots on when we jumped.
Footwear optional, but the affordable housing subject is one that's personal to me. I benefited from it when I needed it several years ago, and there's a serious shortage of it. The policies the city needs to adopt need to go a great deal farther than the city's policies have gone in the past. We really have a unique opportunity right now where property values are shooting, sky high. It creates an opportunity for developers to build these units profitably, and also makes the need for affordable housing that much more acute. So as you move forward with your housing element, I hope you'll keep those things in mind, in addition to some troubling math that around half of San Clemente residents between 25 and 55, and the later 2/3 of that are people's peak earning years. More than half of those people are renting, and that prevents them from laying down the deep roots that people need. And that that wouldn't be a real scary number, except that a disproportionately high number of those people are overburdened on their housing costs. More than 30%, and many more than 25%, more than 27% are spending more than 50% of their household income on housing. That locks these families out of the economy. These people aren't shopping on Del Mar. They're not enjoying our restaurants. And good affordable housing policy can really create a lot of opportunity for local businesses by letting those people participate in our local economy. So I hope you'll keep those things in mind and work with the community organizations that are here. They've done their homework and they're happy to meet with you. I know some of you already have met with them. Thank you.
Donovan Dream.
This is a call to action for City Council to take action and give direction to city leadership, staff, and the Planning Commission on the housing element for the sixth cycle in San Clemente. Prioritize getting access to funding for affordable housing, both state and federal. Apply for available federal and state funding to provide emergency shelter and motels or other transitional housing opportunities for San Clemente's homeless residents. Partner with nonprofit builders and service providers to apply for newly available federal and state funding to convert motels, hotels, and office buildings into affordable housing. This includes professional case management and supportive services from day one to achieve long-term meaningful success in transitioning persons from living on the street and public spaces into stable housing. The city's homeless subcommittee has been hampered and restrained in implementing plans and solutions for addressing problems related to homelessness. The homeless subcommittee needs support and commitment from City Council. The city should open safe parking areas for overnight sleeping with restrooms and hygiene facilities for those living in their cars. The city must identify a new proper SB2 zone where an emergency shelter can actually open in San Clemente. This is required by law. The city should create a new SB2 zone, the 2 parcels of land on Avenue Pico, owned by the ESC, whose owner has expressed an interest in providing emergency shelter and affordable housing at that site. Another opportunity is 100 Avenida Presidio, the old city hall. Donate or lease the site and dedicate in lieu fees for building affordable housing here. This property is very favorable for success as it is near public transport, jobs, education, and city resources. The housing element's description of homeless resources is not an accurate picture of what San Clemente provides for its homeless residents. Homelessness remains a challenge for San Clemente, requiring better solutions, a strategy, and greater accountability. The city's management of its homeless residents has been unstable and mostly ineffective. We have witnessed several tragic occurrences, 2 deaths, and ongoing encampment incidences in San Clemente, resulting from lack of services and programs in our city. The city must provide increased proper resources and better accountability as to the effectiveness of its services and programs.
Is that the end of the public comments? Okay. So we have staff here, and I understand this is an update on our housing element progress.
Good evening, Mayor and Council members. Jennifer Savage with the City of San Clemente. We also have 2 of our consultants from Veronica Tam and Associates in the meeting, Veronica and Jamie, as well as our Community Development Director, should we have any questions. This evening, you have a staff report which gives you a summary of the purpose of the meeting and some key components of the draft housing element and safety element. The purpose of this evening's meeting is to obtain initial feedback from the City Council and the public on the drafts. The consultant will provide additional detail on each of these items, but I do want to point out a few key components. The first is the housing site strategy, and the second is the housing programs. These can be tailored to meet San Clemente's needs. And so they're really the key component of the housing element that allow us to tailor our needs within these programs. So on the housing site strategy, we are proposing a strategy to plan for San Clemente's 982 allocated housing units, utilizing accessory dwelling units, existing sites.
Jennifer, I think they might have a comment before you move on. Their microphones are a little quiet, so it's hard for us to hear.
Very difficult to understand what she's saying with the microphone.
Okay, Jennifer, I think it's too close to your mouth, the microphone. Yeah, we're just.
Test.
Yeah, I don't think you need to speak very loudly with that headset, right? If you could pull it away a little bit more.
I will allow the consultant to present, and I will correct my microphone volume.
That sounds much better. But normally it works great. You know, I'm always jealous that you have that headset on because it works so well, but tonight it is not. Okay. So who's going to talk to the key points to this? Veronica, you're on mute.
I forgot to unmute myself. This is Veronica. I'll do the presentation, and Jennifer, are you going to pull up the PowerPoint? Good evening. Glad to present to you the draft housing element, and this is certainly at the point that we're just getting city council and public comments on the housing element so we can refine it and before we send it off to the state. So I just want to give you an overview of what is the housing element, what are the requirements, and what are the key components in the process that we're taking in updating the housing element. Next slide. Well, actually, we've gone through the agenda, so next slide. So the housing element is part of your general plan. It's one of the required elements of the general plan. What we have to do within the housing element is certainly to look at the needs in your community and what are the best way to address your needs, not only of your current residents, but also future residents that may come to the city of San Clemente. It also, the housing element sets policies, objectives and goals regarding housing, not only production, but also housing conditions of the community. And what sets the housing element apart from the rest of the general plan is that it's the only element of the general plan that needs to be updated on a fairly frequent kind of schedule every 8 years or so. And it has a statutory deadline for updating the housing element. No other elements of the general plan are subject to that kind of statutory deadline. With Orange County in the Southern California region, our deadline is October 15, 2021. What also sets the housing element apart from the rest of the general plan is that it has to be reviewed by a state agency for compliance with state law. And the agency responsible for that is the State Department of Housing and Community Development. We are updating the housing element for the 6th cycle from 2021 to 2029. That's the planning period that we will be dealing with in the next 8 years. Next slide. So the housing element has some really, the housing element probably is the most legally regulated element of the entire general plan. It has some key things that we must address in the housing element. Assessment of the current and future housing needs, accommodating housing demand, projected housing demand as mandated by the regional housing needs allocation process. And with that, you must demonstrate that you have adequate residential capacity to meet your projected need. We'll go into that a little in detail a little later. We also need to look at opportunities and constraints as it relate to housing production, housing improvement, and also housing preservation. Housing production, what we have to do also, in addition to all that, you have to set your goals, policies, and then a plan of action relating to housing, housing production, preservation of housing, facilitating affordable housing development for all income groups, or housing for all income groups for all types of housing, promoting fair housing for all, and also improving the existing housing conditions. There are also quantified objectives that you need to adopt as part of the housing element, that those are your, how you can measure your success against relating to construction, rehabilitation, and also preservation. So these are the key components of the housing element. Next slide. When you have a housing element, an element that is so legally kind of prescribed as to what constitute the requirements of the housing element, and a state agency responsible for reviewing it for compliance with state law, there are consequences for not complying with state law. Specifically, the housing element is an integral component of your general plan. If your housing element is out of compliance, it actually kind of renders your general plan out of compliance as well. In the event of a lawsuit, and unfortunately, I have to say the housing element is also probably the most frequently litigated element of the general plan. In the event of a lawsuit, you have that presumption of validity. If a state agency, HCD, has already deemed your housing element to be complying with state law, in the event of a lawsuit, it would be the burden of proof would be on the litigant, and otherwise it would be fairly difficult for the city to defend itself when a state agency has already indicated that the city's housing element is not complying with state law. The other benefit or reasons for having a finding of substantial compliance of the housing element is eligibility of funding. You would be able to apply for SB2 and LEAP grants, housing grants that are being overseen by the State Department of Housing and Community Development. Without that status, you would not be able to either apply for certain funding, or you would not be able to be competitive in some of your funding applications. There are also certain penalties. Specifically, the state changed the state law that the state HCD has the ability to recommend a city to the state attorney general for legal action due to the long continued inaction in terms of the housing element. Certainly that has happened to the city of Huntington Beach a couple of years ago, and they just resolved, I think, the lawsuit last year. There's been other lawsuits against City of Pleasanton, for example. And if we miss the deadline for the housing element, October 15, 2021, we will be doing a 4-year housing element. And so that the goal of this is to definitely meet the timeline for adoption of October 15, 2021. Next slide. So this particular housing element, you recently just completed your housing element in 2017. You were subject to a 4-year housing element due to some issues relating to the SB2 compliance and also timing of the housing element. So we recently just completed the housing element in 2017. So this one, the major changes, structurally, the housing element is not very different from your current housing element, but the major changes was to comprehensively update the demographic and housing data. We also changed the discussions to reflect new state law. There've been a lot of new state laws between 2017 and 2020. There's been a lot of new state law passed by the state. So this housing element also reflects the things that we need to change in order to meet state law. One being that there's been significant changes regarding the regional housing needs allocation and how you accommodate that with sites, what constitutes a site, and also the requirement to monitor the actual consumption of your sites of building housing on your sites. There's been also ADUs, a lot of laws relating to ADUs and the requirements as they relate to housing for special needs population. So the housing element is updated to include these new programs. One, definitely the most important one, and is the need to rezone additional properties for your regional housing needs allocation. We don't have adequate sites without the rezoning. So staff had gone through the process of identifying candidate sites. And these are, I have to emphasize, these are candidate sites at this time for potential rezoning as part after the housing element. We have also included programs to facilitate ADUs and also zoning provisions that the city will be amending in order to facilitate special needs housing. And last but not least, the affirmatively furthering fair housing. You see that there is a placeholder in the affirmative fair housing analysis, and that's because the guidelines to come up with how to do the affirmatively furthering fair housing was only released by the state on April 27th. And so the state HCD has indicated cities can trail the AFFH affirmatively furthering fair housing analysis after the submittal of the housing element. So we also, as part of the update, we adjusted the level of commitments as they associated to each programs based on past performance. We want to make sure that the level of commitments and quantified objectives are reflective of what the city is able to do based on trends, based on resources available. Next slide. So now we go a little bit more into the regional housing needs allocation. It's a process mandated by the state. It starts with the state HCD, looking at how much growth is needed for the entire state for the next 8-10 years or so. That number is 3.5 million new units that the state projected. With the Southern California Association of Governments, SCAG region being the largest region in the state, we got the lion's share of that number, and Orange County get an allocation of 183,000 units and change, and then each jurisdiction gets an allocation. And San Clemente get 982, which is actually smaller than a lot of your neighbors. The regional housing needs allocation is divided into income groups: very low, low, moderate, and above moderate income. And what we have to do is make sure that your land use policies, your zoning development standards are feasible for facilitating that type of housing. It doesn't necessarily mean that housing you develop will have to be in that income level, but your planning and your land use policy would need to be considered to be feasible for facilitating those type of housing. Next slide. So in trying to come up with your regional housing needs allocation, how do we accommodate that? We look at your ADUs. Based on trends, we think that you can do about 20 units a year for about 160 units over the 8 years. You're allowed to project it based on trend and based on an income distribution study, affordability level study done by SCAG that's been pre-approved by the state. We're able to make these type of allocations regarding the affordability level. And still, we with just 160 units of ADU, we need to identify what is available right now in terms of vacant and underutilized sites that's still considered to be available today, which only accommodate about 320 units, so definitely not enough. So the staff has identified a number of candidate sites for rezoning. We've been presenting that list of candidate sites at different meetings now. With the rezoning, if all of those happen, then we have certainly more than we would need for the RENA. But again, the sites that we're talking about, we're calling them candidate sites because you have 3 years to complete the rezoning of those sites. And as you do that, you may decide some sites may drop off, some sites may be added. You still have the opportunity to make adjustment to those candidate sites. However, in order for the state to be able to conclude that the city have potentially adequate sites, they need to look at the candidate sites as part of the housing element.
Veronica.
Next slide. Yes.
So just quick test, is my sound okay?
Yeah, I can hear you pretty well, and even before.
Okay. So council, let me know if it's not corrected, and I will adjust it. Apologize for the error earlier. Veronica, I will go ahead and just quickly wrap up a quick summary.
Okay.
Mayor and council members, the consultants do have additional slides if you want to display what the draft programs are. However, I do want to just point out that we do have draft housing programs as well as a draft list of sites for your consideration and feedback, and that the Planning Commission suggested 2 additional programs. Those are not in your draft housing element, but they are noted in the staff report. Staff will continue to collect comments, including public comments, through the end of May 31st. And this concludes staff presentation, and we are available for any questions.
All right, Jennifer, I appreciate you wrapping that up. I just have a quick comment and a question. I do understand that there is one new program that's being introduced or thought of, and that is to allow 20% affordable housing if a developer so chooses, to allow them to do that housing or that project by right. And I had concerns with that, mainly had to do with design guidelines and requirements for parking. But then I turned the page and I noticed that the Planning Commission feedback was on that, was to establish objective design standards to preserve the city's architectural aesthetics and to evaluate another way of doing multifamily parking, to consider maybe tandem spaces. So is that true for that part of the 20% affordable? If a developer chooses, would they still be subject to design guidelines and parking requirements?
Thank you. So certainly there are a number of state regulations that allow parking reductions, reductions lower than the city's requirements. And we can't circumvent those. To be clear, the Planning Commission's recommendation was to actually take a look at our existing parking regulations and trying to make them more lenient for multifamily development. Oftentimes, guest parking spaces render a development infeasible. So that's one example. And then in terms of the design standards, that 20% rule, design standards can still be applied to a project, but they have to be objective. They can't be subjective. An example of subjective is it's compatible with the neighborhood. There's no clear-cut answer there, and so they have to be objective design standards.
And Mayor Ward, if I could just clarify one thing based on what Jennifer just said, Cecilia Gallardo-Daly, Community Development Director. One of the things that we would like to do is codify our development, or I'm sorry, our design guidelines. So to the extent that we have some design guidelines that we can put into the code and that can be part of that objective checklist, we think it would yield a better development for the city, so that those design guidelines just aren't used with discretionary applications, but are applied to ministerial applications as well.
So I appreciate that. That's kind of what I've got from the report, and that was my concerns.
Madam Mayor,
yes.
I tried to follow what Cecilia was saying. Can you dumb it down a little bit?
Cecilia, did you hear that?
No, I did not hear, James.
Say that again.
So can you say what you said just a moment ago?
Layman's terms. In
layman's terms, because, you know, Mayor Ward has the advantage of having sat on the Planning Commission. I don't have that advantage. So if you can dumb it down a little bit for me.
Yes. So there, you know, based on the need to accommodate more housing and more affordable housing in the city, we may have to look at allowing more development without a discretionary permit, more residential development. And the concern is that if we allow more residential development with just a building permit, what are the aesthetics? What is that going to look like? You know, the city has placed a lot of value on high quality design standards, and the concern is that could potentially get lost with multifamily residential developments just having to obtain a building permit. So to try and address that, one of the things that we have talked about as staff, and certainly the Planning Commission picked up on it, and it's something that we have in our work program, is to look at our design guidelines. And to the extent that we can, put those guidelines in the code so that we can create some objective designs, standards that we can apply to development projects. Maybe it has to do with windows or building wall planes or landscaping or colors or materials, but it's an objective checklist, and it's not something that would require any discretion on the part of staff. It would just be some specific requirements.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, so I think the report was very good, and it did explain what we're counting and how we're counting it. State law is allowing 20%. But I do appreciate the Planning Commission's comments. I think they were very good and probably reflect what I would want to see. I think affordable housing, you know, I understand that means it's higher density. And they, you know, they get if they do affordable, they get some density bonus out of that. I do understand that in the zoning. But the design guidelines or a nice place to live should not suffer. And the neighborhood shouldn't suffer. So I do appreciate those comments. That's all I saw of this, of how we're counting. And I didn't actually see any inventory of campaign sites. I think I heard tonight that those are going to be presented in the future, but I did not see them in the staff report, if they are there.
Could Jennifer put the slides back up and go back to the RENA numbers? It was Newport, San Juan, and us.
But also, could you answer my question first? Is there
I'm
a
sorry.
inventory of
the actual
candidate
sites? Is that what you're saying?
Yeah, I
Like a
didn't
map
think it's
with
in
the
here.
actual sites?
Yeah.
I think it's on page.
Correct. If you on page, let's see, table 4-5 of the draft housing element is the table for candidate sites for rezoning. And it's page HE-86.
Thank you. And then, oh, good, you put that back up for Mayor Pro Tem. I see number 6.
Actually, go back to where. There we go. That one. I really thought we got hit hard. I'm looking at Newport Beach. I'm looking at Laguna Niguel, San Juan. Jennifer, is there some sort of formula, or are these numbers just someone pulls out of the air?
There is a formula.
And do we know what that formula is?
We do. SCAG provides a workbook, or rather an Excel spreadsheet that functions as a calculator. And that calculator breaks down the components that go into that number. A couple include existing housing need, projected housing need, the number of housing units attributed to a job-rich area or a transit-rich area.
So that's probably why Newport is so much more. But again, and I would ask this of our consultants, are these RENA numbers, are they not being challenged at the state level? I understand we have to go through our housing element and do this, but eventually there is some challenges to the numbers, is there not?
Not anymore. The RENA numbers most likely, well, it's not going to change. So once the state, the challenges at the local level is done, it's been completed, and the RENA is finalized on, I think, March 5th. And the state doesn't change the number, and there's no, as far as I know, there's no avenue for challenging anymore. There's been talked about changing the RENA process, and that may change what's going to happen in the next cycle. I don't think it's going to change what's going to happen, what's happening right now.
Okay. So our number, barring any change in laws or anything, this is our number until 2029.
Right. I apologize. It's hard for me to hear for some reason now. Some of the council members, I'm having difficulty hearing. It was fine before, but now I have a difficulty hearing.
I have a point of order. I'm listening to some audio. Maybe it's somebody that's online. I'm listening to audio. Everyone needs to mute. Thank you. It's very loud in our room.
Okay.
Okay. So it is a good point. You know, ours, I think we found that out, and now you understand why Newport Beach is trying to get something going in the state. So, Ms. Tam has helped us through our housing elements in the past and been our consultant for many years. And I think that her and staff have done a good job of trying to allocate sites for how we can do this and how our ADUs can be counted. And that's important in our housing element, is to show the state that we have possible numbers. And that's all the comments I have.
I just quick
ahead.
comment, Madam Mayor. I just was wondering, Jennifer, the ease with which someone can be added to the list of the residential site inventory. My gut feeling is that with these density bonuses, we're gonna get some people that in the Molina district or other areas that say, this could be a profitable venture with the number of units we're allowed to build. So how easy it is, I guess it would be a simple matter, right, to simply get the zoning change and be added to the housing element, amend the housing element to include new properties. If someone were to, who wasn't on a candidate list, would just come to the city and say, I'd like to be included in this program.
Yes, relatively. There's two considerations though. We are planning to release a draft environmental review document next month in June. And so if a property owner wanted to be incorporated into the housing element itself as a candidate site for rezoning, we would need to know sooner rather than later so that we could incorporate them into the environmental review document. However, once the housing element is approved and we actually start the process to rezone, there is another opportunity to take a look at additional sites in the future.
Thank you.
But the city would have to approve those. Okay.
A quick comment. Oh, sorry. No, go ahead, Laura. Yeah, go ahead.
Here's is quick. I have a few questions, so please, if you just have one, please go ahead.
Sure. Okay. I just wanted to follow up. One point was on the 20% by right. The key part for me was including existing properties. I felt for a while we're not getting our fair shot because we have existing very low income properties that are not included or credited towards our RENA numbers. So I would be interested in it, assuming we can have the design standards piece part, set in, that we pursue that so that we can get credit for the existing units we have. The other thing I just drive home this point, and I guess it's a question maybe for Veronica or maybe for Jennifer, but just to make the point, none of this requires actual building of any housing at all, right?
Correct.
Okay. Yeah, because there's just this concern that within 3 years, massive affordable housing structures are mandated to be built. That's not true, right? Okay. Yeah, I'm seeing no. So this is just taking steps so that our housing element gets approved. We don't get dinged with those penalties, so that, but by giving the opportunity out there, potentially sometime in the future, if it makes sense for some private developer and the property owner to develop something potentially.
It could be done.
Yeah, and that's what I'm gambling. I really think that when the development community starts realizing the bonus incentives and doing the math on some of these projects, I mean, we're landlocked, so we have a problem. But
right,
ultimately, I think this is going to.
Well, there may be, but I guess my point is, it's not going to happen tomorrow. It's not going to happen next year. This is down the road. What we're doing now is just trying to comply with the state law so we can get our housing element approved, not get into the trouble we've gotten into before, by giving that good faith effort to identify potential locations. That's it. Then market forces will take over. Okay, sorry, Councilmember Ferguson, please go ahead.
Thanks, Councilmember Duncan. On your note, I think it would be very beneficial if the city had its videographer do a video, couple minutes to educate the community on what affordable housing is. We received hundreds of emails at the time the survey went out. The survey resulted in looks like about 1% of the population responded, a little over 600. But people were not really aware what affordable housing is. It seems to be a misnomer to folks. They thought that it would bring blight and vagrancy and devalue properties and so forth. So I think it'd be really helpful, and also thought that we were going to build all these sites, as you just noted, Councilmember Duncan, and actually we just have to zone for it, and we don't necessarily build it. And so therefore, I'd like to suggest that that staff put that together, and just what the housing element is, just a simple 1, 2, 3 for people so they understand, because there seems to be a lot of misinformation about what it is. I live not too far from about a 200 unit affordable housing development, and none of that is true. So I live it, and I'm a testament to the fact that I don't have any of that where I live. So thank you. I'd like to suggest that. And then for staff, I'm not sure who, but I wanted to note the Veracruz site in the survey questions and results. I thought the Veracruz site on page 9C129 was no longer. I thought it was excluded. Could you verify that, please?
That is correct. It was included on the survey by error, but it's no longer in the candidate site list in
Okay,
table
perfect.
4.5.
Okay, thank you very much, Jennifer. And then also, if we can go to page 3, first paragraph, housing site strategy. It just talks what we just were talking about, how cities are required to plan for housing, but are not, I just wanted to change, are not in a position to build housing units, but are not required to build housing units. That would be probably most accurate and clear for people. And then I also wanted to ask staff if you could elaborate a little bit on the city's increased efforts pertaining to ADUs proposed as a part of a revised program, include accepting pre-approved plans and implementing a one-stop shop for accessory dwelling units. Could you expand a little bit about that? I'm very interested.
Yes, absolutely. So taking council comments in the past, we looked at our ADU program, and to rely more on ADUs as housing units, the city does have to identify how it would meet the goal of relying more on ADUs than has historically been shown in the city. Over the past few years, there's been an average of 15 ADUs built per year. And so in order to increase that to what we've proposed in the housing element to 20 ADUs per year, we would implement a one-stop shop to streamline or expedite the review of building permits for ADUs, as well as work with a county or regional effort to use pre-approved plans, if you will. That's something that we do have to explore further with our staff. There may be some issues with pre-approved plans, just given the complexity and the uniqueness of San Clemente, but those efforts would allow us to assume 20 ADUs per year as opposed to 15 that we've seen on average.
Okay, I think that would be good. And just as an example, I work for the city of Encinitas, and they have a very successful permit-ready accessory dwelling unit program. They've added a little over 400 in 10 years, but that program is only about 3 years old, and it's really working. And people can go right in, and the architectural plans, multiple ones they can choose from, and they're permit ready to go. So just an idea, if you hadn't known that, to take a look at theirs. As a suggestion. And then lastly, if I may, has staff already sent the 100 Avenida Presidio property for the Surplus Lands Act to the HCD for listing on their website?
Yes, and our economic development officer is on the phone and can correct me that we did begin that process.
Okay, so that's okay, because I did check a few days after the meeting, but I didn't see that on that active notice of availability for the Surplus Lands Act yet. So I just wanted to verify that. Could staff get back to council and let us know? Okay, that would be wonderful. Well, great job on this. Very, very good. Thank you.
Okay, so I want to wrap up for the interest of time. It's 10:25 and I'm not going to be inclined to go past 11 tonight. Is it 11:25?
It's 11.
Oh, so we need to wrap this up because I'm not going to be able to stay much longer. So Jennifer, please, you've heard the comments of the city council. There isn't anything for us to vote on at this time. This was just to provide feedback. Is that correct?
Correct. And if anyone has any additional comments, we are collecting them until the end of May.
Okay.
Mayor Ward, if I may, I wanted to see if council supported having our videographer who's on staff do a video just so we can do some education on this.
I think if you would like to talk to staff about that, or we could have staff consider doing it. I have an issue. I started thinking about how that would be done. I don't think that we should go to the affordable housing that's within our city and take videos of that housing and identify where they are. I think
Right.
that's wrong. So I can't come up with any other way that we could do a video on that. But please speak to the city manager about it.
Yeah,
But
perfect.
we should take it up tonight.
But okay, as long as council's supportive of that. Some of the slides tonight were excellent. We could use those as well.
I don't know that the council is supportive of it tonight, so I think you should flesh that out with staff more. That's not something that comes to the city council for us to do. If staff.
Well, I don't direct staff, Cappy, so it's something I'd have to recommend to either be on an agenda and get a second for, or if staff wants to do it, the city manager can direct that.
I'm not seeing anyone for that at this time to take it up. This is tonight to only comment to our staff of the update to the housing element, and we need to wrap this up. So there's no.
The city manager can choose to do it if he wants then. Okay.
Okay. So thank you to staff for this update and for the public to have it. And I look forward to hearing more. Thank you.
Mayor, I just really quick, I did get the answer from our economic development officer. The Presidio site was sent to the state on May 12th.
Oh, perfect. Thank you. Thank you, Eric.
You know, that was just voted on at our last council meeting, and it takes a while for the state to update.
May 4th, right?
Our last council meeting, it was approved.
Right, May 4th.
All right. So Madam Clerk, what is our next item?
Well, before we go to the next item, it is 11 p.m. So per council
I make a
policy.
motion
To what?
to go to 11:20.
I'm not going to second that. I have a headache.
The other
go
part
have
of
one-
it
we just have
is
one more-
that at
one
11
more
p.m.
item.
council
I
needs
think
to
that-
determine which of the remaining agenda items can be considered and acted upon at this meeting, and will continue all other agenda items to a future meeting.
All that's left is item E. I propose it goes to the next city council meeting.
I second that.
Too much time on other things tonight.
There's one item, Mayor Ward, that I would like to introduce because I think it's time critical
Okay.
for the next meeting.
Can you just, that has to be in council comments?
Yeah.
Okay, so, all right, so I'll make a motion that item E goes to the next city council meeting of June 1st.
I think you mean D.
Did I say? Oh, yes,
Possibility.
I'm sorry, D.
D, okay.
We went out of order so many times tonight. Okay, I'm sorry.
Second.
So there's a motion and a second.
Councilmember Duncan,
Aye.
Councilmember Ferguson,
Aye.
Member Noblock,
Aye.
Mayor Pro Tem James.
Aye.
And Mayor Ward.
Aye.
Carries 5-0. Oral communications part 2. We do have 2 speaker cards.
Okay.
You know, and actually we had 1 speaker card on 9D. Did you want to hear that or continue that?
Well, we continued it, so
I'd like to continue it just so that it's for the public, it's on the same item that we're hearing at the time.
is the person present?
Bill Crutinshire?
Okay,
Thank you.
I appreciate it.
Okay, oral communications, again, Bill Crutinshire.
Mayor Ward, Council, on Councilman Noblock's resolution, just briefly, I think it is, I agree that people should not have to pay the city's costs for appeals. I think that's improper. I do think there's room for a reasonable rule where that a little nuance can be added to that so that it's not abused, because that is a risk to the city. I hear those concerns also. And I just wanted to kind of follow up on the comment I made earlier about previous meetings, I think 8A, the lawsuit matter. For the council members who are recusing rather than just abstaining, I'm very interested in why that's appropriate when, like, I mean, I don't understand, and I'm not a lawyer. I mean, there could be perfectly good reasons that a person who's a witness to something or, you know, shouldn't vote on it, but I don't understand why a person couldn't just abstain. And for it to be seen as a potential gift of public funds, I don't know how anybody's supposed to believe or understand that without first hearing about the matter in a public meeting. I can't imagine how that's a reasonable statement. It seems actually almost defamatory in nature. And that's all I have to say about that. I think a lot of people want to hear more about that subject.
I'm happy to respond to your question. There is another reason, and I'll have to be very brief on this because I may be called as a potential witness. I actually held the event for someone who was moving out of town at the Red Fox. So, and this is relating to that. So
we don't answer.
I can clarify because he's looking for an answer, but that's another reason. So that I am
You're out of order.
more than likely potentially going to be called as a witness.
Thank you very much. You're out of order.
You're welcome.
Okay, the next comment is from Tony Rubolino.
Hey, Council, at the turn of the year, there was a lot of talk about censoring, and I believe the censor related to criticism of public employees and whatnot and some other things. But anyways, that's another issue, but I'm here to tee you up for the next censoring. This council member, sitting council member, circulated a bogus article about a council candidate during her campaign. And the OC Weekly article that we're all very familiar with, turns out that Kathy Ward was the source in a social media post by former Mayor Dan Bain. He stated, Liam Bloom told me his source, Kathy Ward, told him not to contact me ahead of posting because I would claim it was lies and libelous. She was right, it was lies and libelous, which is why it was immediately taken down and why Liam provided me with a letter of unconditional apology. We know that that article was retracted, there were apologies written, and who knows what happened to that poor journalist's future because he felt that he could trust a seated politician. Number two, there was a bogus police report that Kathy filed against me, and she cited a physical reaction in my presence. I don't believe there was any evidence to back that up, and I would imagine the DA, when they saw that come across their desk, they probably laughed as they threw it in the trash. And number three, this is probably the most egregious component. In March 2019, Kathy had emailed the John and Ken show from her private email, the W one, at about 1 a.m. in the morning to the John and Ken producer. And they read her So there you go. Kathy's letter was read aloud that the sheriffs wussed out on us, that Chief Manhart and our OCSD officers are basically wussing out on enforcement, that they are wussies. We can extrapolate that. And we're all adults. We understand that the W could be replaced with the letter P, and that's probably how Kathy really feels about the situation. Now, censoring might be a bit more extreme, and that's okay. And we know the council member who took a knee during a BLM protest probably maybe in alignment with this, I don't know. But there are three of you who could at least state your case and distance yourself from Kathy's attack on our OCSD in the public forum. And Chief Manhart and our OCSD they basically have a dark cloud operating over them. And that's happened yesterday, today, and probably go on tomorrow until Kathy goes ahead and makes a formal apology. You can at least state that your support of our OCSD officers and distance yourself from Kathy. Thank you.
Madam Clerk, is that the end of our public comments?
Yes.
All right, next item.
Next item is city manager reports.
Nothing to report on. Thank you.
City attorney,
Nothing tonight, thank you.
council members.
Yeah,
Councilmember
the one point I'd like to make is we've been requested to support Congressman Levin's bill that he authored called the American Coasts and Oceans Protection Act. I wanted to make sure we got this in today because he's going to be at our next meeting, and I think we should support that bill. It protects our coasts from drilling and a possible spill, and I think that really pertains centrally in my mind to our local businesses, which really rely so much on having our clean coasts. And if we did have some kind of drilling spill, it could be absolutely devastating for our local economy. So I think we should support that bill, and I'd encourage us to come back with a support letter by our next meeting so that when Representative Levin is here, we will have that letter ready to go.
I'll second that.
Okay, and Madam Clerk, you have such a good memory. Didn't the city council take a position in years past against offshore drilling? Or is that in our general plan? I believe that the city has a
I think
position on
council
that.
did.
When that comes back, can that be part of our report? The city's prior position on that? Okay, thank you.
And Mayor Ward, if I may, we got a call from a resident today. She had indicated she called.
Laura, can you just
Hello?
take a vote first? Can you just wait one moment?
Oh, you bet. I'm sorry.
So there's a motion by Councilmember Duncan and a second by Councilmember Ferguson.
Councilmember Duncan.
Aye.
Councilmember Ferguson.
Aye.
Councilmember Noblock.
I need to understand the motion. This is a request to agendize.
Just to bring back a consideration and a possible letter. And I asked the city clerk just to agendize it. Yes.
Right.
Okay, not to support.
No, it's just to agendize.
We have a draft letter ready to go in case we vote to support.
If two members agree, you don't need to take a vote, do you?
Yes, but I'm asking for a staff report because I believe the city's taken a position already.
Is there a third?
I'll do the third. With my question, I know the city council has taken a position on offshore drilling. So I think that should be part of the report so that we're all informed of what the city's position we've already taken.
I would just say that regardless of whether councils in the past have taken position on offshore drilling, it would be our position as a current council to take that position.
And I understand that. I just wanted it for information only.
Okay.
Yeah, it was just for information only because I know I've read it. I've read it somewhere.
I just have a concern. We're at $5 on gasoline right now, and inflation is about ready to kick in. I'm not sure this is the time to start restricting petroleum exploration.
There's plenty of pipelines. If we keep those, we don't need to go offshore. You know, I'm not saying I don't disagree, but let's talk about that when it's agendized.
We can talk about it later.
Okay.
Okay, so Councilmember Noblock, did you?
Point of order, if 3 people requested it, you don't need to vote with 5 people. It's already on the.
Usually you do finish the vote.
Yeah.
Rather than just leaving.
It's a majority of council that is
asked.
Point of order, to agendize an item with a staff report, it requires 3 council members, and we've got 3, right?
Yeah,
So,
I can do it.
Yeah,
City
it's
Attorney,
done,
will
it's
you
done.
opine on that?
Yeah, I think it's good either way.
It's good either way. So you're just refusing to vote.
Well, I'm saying we have 3 votes, it's done. It serves no purpose.
Madam Clerk.
Okay.
So, Mr. Duncan, that is it?
Yes.
Okay. Any other comment?
I have one.
I do. Okay, go ahead. I'll wait.
Yeah, just let
Go ahead.
who's at home, we'll let her go. Go ahead, Laura.
Oh, thanks. Thanks, Catherine. Thanks, Jean. I just wanted to point out a resident called today, and I'm glad she let us know because she let us know that it was National Police Week last week, May 9 through the 15th. And it's recognized each year to inspire all citizens to value law enforcement, So I just wanted to make a note of that. And during this time of the year, Americans pause to say a collective thank you to the men and women who wear or carry the badge, and thank our deputies and police officers for the work that they do in their commitment to protect and serve. So I just wanted to share that with you, and hope that next year, if staff can make a note, that happens around this time every year, so we can do a formal proclamation like the ones earlier tonight. Thank you.
So
Go ahead,
I
Mayor
have
Pro
one
Tem.
thing, and Madam Mayor, this needs to be cleared up. I don't want a lot of drama associated with it. I just want a yes or no answer and be done with the question. I've received a lot of contacts in regards to our closed session last week being breached or violated. I don't have personal information about it, but I have people who want an answer. And so I'm going to pose the answer to Councilmember Ferguson. And that was last week during closed session, was your attorney, Brad Malamud, in your home and privy to what we were having a conversation on?
I'm prepared to deny. I could tell you no laws were broken, but if you believe that a crime was committed, you can take that to a court of law, at which time I will respond to your questions and accusations, but no laws were broken.
It was not an accusation there. There's a question.
I've seen accusations in your emails to me and to Mr. Sund and Mr. Smith.
So was he there?
No laws were broken.
Was he privy to our closed session?
No, that would be a law broken. No laws were broken, and I've never broken any laws.
There you go. She's never broken any laws. So,
But you censured me for laws you accused me of violating, which I never did. So
a censure of the city
I
council.
hope you're not planning to do that again.
Councilmember Noblock, do you have any?
Just one
Yes.
item, Madam Mayor. I'd like to deliver to the city a plaque
Yes.
that was created by our new tree trimming company, Western Arborists. It's made of recycled wood, and it has a laser imprint of our city logo. And I guess we can place that somewhere in City Hall, perhaps in the new sheriff's second floor improvements. But I just want to present that to the city. It was given to me by a representative of Western Arbors to the city. So here it is.
Great.
I don't know if you can see that on the screen.
Can you put it closer to the screen? There, it's starting to come in.
Visible? I can't tell.
No, it's not going to work.
This technology is just not
Okay,
what we're
well,
used to.
they
Steve,
can
this is
come
a
to City
reason.
Hall and see it.
This is why we need a new chambers so that we can start getting back to normal and doing things that we want to do and let the public see it. Okay, thank you very much. And I have no request tonight. So I see we have no resolutions or ordinances. So I would like to adjourn. Madam Clerk? Okay.
In this,
Second the motion.
in memory of Bill Hart.
Yes, so I want to do that. So tonight's meeting is going to be adjourned in the memory of Bill Hart. And the adjournment is to the next in-person closed session of the City Council at the regular City Council meeting scheduled to take place on June 1st, 2021. Closed session items will be considered at 5:00 p.m. and the regular business meeting will commence at 6:00 p.m. The meeting will take place in the Community Center Auditorium located at 100 North Calle Civil, San Clemente.
And the closed session will be conducted solely in person. Is that correct?
That's what I said. Adjournment is the next in-person city council meeting, or next in-person closed session. I read that.
Okay.
Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Councilmember Noblock.
Councilmember Duncan.
Aye.
Councilmember Ferguson.
Aye.
Councilmember Noblock.
Aye.
Mayor Pro Tem James.
Aye.
And Mayor Ward.
Aye.
Carries 5-0.